Hi, everyone, and a massive welcome to the next episode of the CISO Experience here on InfoSec Live. In fact, the first of two live events today where we get to engage with and learn from the cybersecurity industry's leadership in a live setting with open and honest conversations. By sharing stories and best practices over the last few months, it's led to over 5,000 hours of our content being viewed on YouTube by over 2,300 subscribers, and has also qualified us to become members of the YouTube Partner Program, which this achievement also allows us to offer you, our viewers, new and exciting ways to support the YouTube and the InfoSec Live community, giving you the ability to purchase super stickers in the YouTube chat if you'd like your question bumped up to the top, and 3 tiers of membership allowing you to show your support in any way you can. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content, jumping in and asking questions is what really matters. But a special big thank you to our latest members who've joined the last couple of weeks. So thank you, Aaron Lax, Alana Boyajian, Josh Copeland, Peter Elliman, and Kevin Apollinario. Your support is helping us grow the InfoSec Live Scholarship Scheme and much, much more. And if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. We try to make these events as interactive as possible, so make sure you drop any questions in your chat. You may have noticed an exciting change to the intro today, and I'm delighted to announce that the series has got a brand new sponsor, helping us grow and provide even more free and engaging content. So a huge thank you to Carl Matson, the CISO at No Name Security, and of course the whole team there for helping support our global community of approaching 4,000 professionals. No Name Security is the only company taking a complete proactive approach to API security and works with 20% of the Fortune 500 and covers the entire API security scope across 3 pillars: posture management, runtime security, and API security testing. It's a privately held remote-first company with headquarters in Silicon Valley and offices in Tel Aviv and Amsterdam. And a link to find out more about how they can help you and your organization will be in the comments later. And also, if you're looking for work, after looking at their website yesterday, their career page is ram-packed full of jobs as well. So please do check that out. But it's now time to bring on our first guest for today. And I'm very excited to be joined by Ron Sharon. Ron's an IT executive and cybersecurity leader with 15 plus years of experience, translating business requirements to deliver innovative solutions and, of course, mitigate risk. Originally from Israel, his love for technology developed from his love of tinkering with electronics when he was a small child. From when his father first brought home his family's first computer when he was 9, it was a white box with a 286 processor and 8 megabytes of RAM. Looking forward to chatting about that, Ron. And then at the age of 21, he finished his service with the Israel Defense Force, or the IDF, where he served as a military policeman and entered his name into the diversity visa program, which, for those that know, is a bit of a green card lottery. And then 22 years old, he received that letter that informed him he was one of just 100,000 individuals that had won. And a year later, he packed his bags and as much life savings as a 23-year-old could have and moved on to the United States. Like most of us, when we start off in our careers, perhaps his first couple of jobs had nothing to do with IT or security. His first job was packing water pumps from an OEM car parts facility in Huntington Beach, California. And his second job, he worked as a youth counselor for the Israeli Scouts in Irvine, California. And it wasn't until a year later, after he moved to the US, that a friend hooked him up with his first IT job, which was as an IT manager for a test equipment manufacturing company. Grew professionally fast and soon owned his own business. Ran this for 8 years, providing IT support for businesses around Southern California and Austin, Texas. Also sold technology equipment to the United States government. And in 2016, he became the first director of IT for Ibotta, a Denver-based startup where he built the IT department from the ground up and helped scale the business from 180 to 400 employees in less than 2 years. And in 2018, he became the VP of Information Security for Mercer Advisors, and he's happily married with one wonderful daughter. So let's bring him on. Hey, Ron, I hope I got that right.
Yeah, hearing it from you, it sounds like I've done a lot.
You have.
About it. Yeah, you just don't realize how much you've done in your lifetime until somebody else reads it to you from a piece of paper or on a screen.
It's funny how that works, isn't it? I had a similar conversation with someone who I was talking about with some contract work the other week, who read back to me kind of what he'd researched about me, and I felt the same. But anyway, enough about me. Let me bring the chat up because I noticed I haven't got the overlay up. It'll start to filter down soon. So I've given a bit of background, Ron. Firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and have a chat today. Is there anything you'd like to kick off with regards to filling in some gaps on your background that I might have missed?
No, I think it's a pretty big list there. So I think we're good.
Excellent. Okay, well let's step straight in then. As you know, I think we've had this conversation before. I don't tend to have set questions, so I want to see where this goes and try and get the audience to engage as much as they can. And just want to say a quick thank you to Susan Brown, Kerry, Larry, Salunio, Richard, Nika, there's Richard, and another one. There's quite a few of you in there. Please do drop any questions you might have in the chat. But I'm going to start off with asking you, Ron, what's your biggest success of your career?
Biggest success of my career, I think it's there's a couple of them, and it's just taking new challenges and new companies that I joined, and building up things from the ground up, like building a new IT department in Nevada, kind of doing the same thing, but revamping the IT department in Mercer Advisors, and also building up the security program in Mercer Advisors from the ground up. So there was none, and now there's a lot. Those are signature things.
It's the challenge that you like then, Ron. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It makes things interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's not interesting, life becomes very dull.
And days have become very long.
Yeah, very much. So I imagine your days are quite short at the moment, though.
If you're in InfoSec, they're always short days, since there's always something happening somewhere, and you have to be on alert all the time.
So I know from the people I'm seeing in the audience there, we've got a few seasoned professionals. We've also got a few people who are either trying to break in or have just broken into the industry. And one of the things we see a lot of on social media is people struggling to break in. Other people seem to breeze their ways into the industry. What are your thoughts on those people who are looking to break in? How can they differentiate themselves from the rest of the people out there?
It's an awesome question, Simon. So here's the thing: when I first got into IT and cybersecurity, it just happened. Somebody came to me. Somebody came to me. I came to one of my bosses, and said, "Hey, somebody needs to take care of the security stuff. Nobody's doing it." And he just said to me, "You do it." So I did, and that's how I got into cybersecurity. Today, it's totally different. Cybersecurity is, of course, an important topic in a lot of companies, and getting into it is a little bit more complicated. One of the things that I regret right now of not doing 10 years ago is starting to network with people in my field, with recruiters, with hiring managers, with people that do the same thing I do, because that's important. You can have all the certifications in the world, you can have all of the degrees in the world, but if you don't network with the right people, you're just going to be one resume, a part of like 500 that were sent at the same day for a certain position. You have to have that edge. You have to have that's something that takes you to the top level. So my advice is always, when people ask me, is to start networking. Don't do anything else. Start networking and learn, of course, all the technical stuff you need to learn, all the cybersecurity, IT, and technologies behind it. But don't forget the soft skills. Network.
I mean, there's a saying, your network is your net worth. And I think it's very, very true. And I think another great benefit from actually spending time networking and speaking to people in the industry, especially for those who are new to it, is to gain clarity on what the different jobs actually are. Because if you look from the outside and believed every marketing email, boot camp, sales letter that you get, there's two really. You can be red team or blue team. And I think I mistakenly got myself wrapped up in the fact that, I thought it was a narrow field. And in reality, there's over 50 different job types, I think, in the industry.
Yeah. What about government risk compliance? What about disaster recovery? That doesn't fall into red team, blue team. No. But there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work in disaster recovery, incident response, a ton of work in incident response field, high paying jobs. People need to look into that as well. And that's a part of information security.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Larry's, thanks for jumping in, Larry. Good to see you as well. Question for you, Ron. What skills from your time with the IDF, Larry's ex-military, by the way, what skills from your time with the IDF did you find helpful and cross-platform to help with any job opportunity, especially within cybersecurity?
So a couple of things that helped me. One of the most important thing to me is being on time. And I know it has nothing to do with cybersecurity, but the Army, when you're in an Army environment, you have to be on time. There's no such thing as being late. If you're late, you pay for it. That's the bottom line. So I took that from the military. I know it has nothing to do with cybersecurity, but it's kind of a life kind of lesson. But what I took from my IDF time to cybersecurity is situational awareness. So I'm always aware about what's going on around me. I'm always aware of what's going on online. I'm always aware, and I do risk analysis on a day-to-day basis. It all came from, I worked with a lot of civilian population in the military as well. So you have to have risk assessments in a second. You know, you see someone, is that person a threat? Is this person gonna stab you or blow up? I need to look at their clothing. I need to look if their hand is in their pocket. I need to see if they're holding a knife, a gun, a machete, something. I need to see if they're acting weird, if they're sweating. And I also need to be aware that next to me there's a person that might be not involved in any of this, and I need to know, and I need to protect that person. So I took that that situational awareness that I was taught to do in the military to my cybersecurity practice.
How about the other skill that a lot of the CISOs I've spoken to say that they feel that's lacking, not just in the industry but in life in general, is critical thinking. Do you think that's something that you learned within the military, or was that a separate learning journey?
So I actually learned that from the scouts. Hard to believe. I learned it, and I think it's very useful to learn it in a very young age, because if you learn it in a young age, it's something that you just do. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to say, "Oh, I'm doing critical thinking. I need to do critical thinking right now." You do it, and you do it all the time, and you don't even think about it. So I learned it being in the scouts, because they taught us a lot of things that are, a lot of soft skills, a lot of how to solve problems, how to help. For instance, I was an instructor, so I was merely a 16-year-old boy, and I had kids in the 4th, 5th grade that I had to come up with activities for. And it's amazing how you think about it fast and in a way that, and it's a different kind of structure, but you learn how to entertain them. You learn on what they want. You learn how to pass them something that you learned in an older age, so they know now, they have the tools, so you give them tools to work. So that's where that came from. It didn't come from the IDF.
But what about people who want to develop their critical thinking skills but are too old for the scouts, Ron? What would the suggestion be? It's difficult, isn't it?
It's difficult, yeah. In an older age, it's a little bit difficult. How do you? It's like saying, how do you learn how to breathe? Kind of thing, because it's you need to change the way you think. In an older age, just work on it. I know, just think about. I always like to say, my sentence is that I like to say to people, don't think out of the box, throw the box away. And that's, to me, it's the epiphany of kind of critical thinking. It's like, don't limit yourself. So if there's a thought in your head and you're saying, well, I can't do that, just throw that thought away. There's no such thing, you can't do it. You might not be able to do it. That's right. But think about how to solve problems in a long way, not just like, oh, I can't do it, I give up, and then you walk away. So I blame always,
I blame a lot of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I blame a lot of that on society and technology in general. So I go back to when I was a kid and I got my first computer. You know, you didn't get an instruction manual. You kind of had to work it out, like you were saying about the one your dad brought home. And from there, we then got, Betamax and VHS video recorders came into the market, which again, when they first came out, no real instruction manual. It was a real steep learning curve. You had to understand how it worked. And then from there, I think where everything went wrong is when we got the codes that you could just type in on your video remote to save the programs. Then we had sat nav. Then we had everything else. So now no one cares how things work because they just do. And I think that might be something to do.
People, and it's kind of the controversial. It's not controversial, but what I'm going to say is probably not politically correct. But Google made us dumb. Google made us dumb because we think we're smart. I can Google how to do it. So you Google how to do it. You copy a command. You paste the command, press enter, and things are done. You have no idea what you did. You just copy and pasted it, and that's it. It works. And then you say on your resume, I know Linux. No, you don't.
It sounds like me when I sat my OSCP. It was very much like that. I'd learned processes, I had bits of script and things to try, but no real understanding of what was happening underneath the bottom.
No real understanding what's going on in the background.
No.
And that's just it. You don't. which is the important bit. Because then if you understand what each command does, then you can remember the command and use it in other places. If you don't, you just copy and paste.
Yeah, exactly that. I just want to say a quick sorry to Larry for calling you ex-military, Larry. It's former military, and I stand corrected for that. I appreciate that comment as well. Let's jump in the chat now. I've groveled to Larry so he doesn't rip my head off and throw me through the window, and bring up a question from Richard. What's the opinion when trying to get into cybersecurity to join a small IT company and get discussing their posture and what they need to do, then putting forward your ideas? I'll just jump on that quickly before you do and give an example of a chap I know. I won't mention his surname. His name's Stuart. He's based in Scotland. He's former military as well, Royal Guard, I believe. And he decided to pivot from working on the doors in nightclubs about 2 years ago into the cybersecurity industry. And the way he ended up doing it was just that, Richard. So he wanted to focus on GRC. So policies and procedures is what interested him. I was working with a penetration testing firm who won an ISO contract that the guy was a pen tester, really didn't know how to go through the process. Stuart got involved, helped us out with it and got it done, put that on his resume and landed a job 4 weeks later as an auditor for a fairly big organization. So that's my two penneth, but what's yours, Ron?
Here's the difference between small companies and big companies, which I've never worked in a big company, a 50,000 people company. I never worked in one. I always worked in smaller companies. And what you get from smaller companies is you wear 10 hats. So if you want to know how to do almost everything in an organization and touch a little bit of everything, that's the way to go. Because in bigger companies, you have 50,000 people. You probably have a team of 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 people that do cybersecurity. In smaller companies, it could be just you. It could be just you and 3 other people. So I would prefer if I started to start in a smaller company and just get to know how things work and graduate eventually to a bigger company, because it's important to know how all the components of the security team works and not just that specific component that you are very good at.
Yeah, absolutely. And Richard, apparently you've landed a job. So I want to say massive congratulations to you, because you are of a similar age to me, Richard. And I know that you felt that that's gone against you over the past few months. But I think with everything you bring to the table, whoever it is who've taken you on are very, very lucky. Oh, Security Council. So yeah, congratulations, mate. That's really, really good news.
Yeah, congratulations.
It's nice. It's nice to see some good news. Larry also mentioned military personnel tend to realize that they're going to be constant learners and trainers in their field of expertise. And Larry, Larry is now a trainer in the cybersecurity industry. Again, really good point. Richard, another one. Let me have a look. We've got Kerry used to have an old TRS-80 from Tandy. I remember those, Kerry. Had to program a lot in BASIC to play games. I think all I ever managed to do was get the screen to flash different colors, if I remember rightly. It's about as far as I've got into it. And Susan Brown, great to see you, Susan. Susan said it's National Computer Security Day today. Back then, this day was all about securing the data and systems. Today we hear, do you pay the ransom or don't you pay the ransom? The data is gone. And then moves on to backups are no longer sufficient due to the damage already done and exploited. What's your views, especially in data security on this very important day? Great question, Susan. Thank you. That's definitely a Ron question, by the way.
Backup. Yeah, backups are no longer safe. Who say that? And the reason they're no longer safe is we're dealing with extremely smart people. They're not dumb. Let's just face it. These are very smart. What they do, of course, is infect the system, and then they wait. We don't know how long they wait. They can wait for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, even a year. They wait because when they act, and let's just say ransomware a system, and you try to recover the system, you're saying, okay, great. I'm going to go 3 months back. You recover the system, and all of a sudden the system is locked again because those bad actors just waited there for whatever amount of time they decided to make sure that all or most of your backups will be infected with their ransomware. So that's right, that they're no longer safe. And it's a big problem. It's a big challenge.
Yeah, what's the way forward on that, Ron, especially with regards to the data security?
Well, the best thing we can do is probably just back up certain aspects of the data, not the entire systems, because today if we have AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, it's an easy backup. We press a button and the entire system is backed up. What we do, and because we think it's safe, let's just say if we have a bunch of databases, we don't back up those databases because we're thinking, hey, the entire system is backed up. All I need is to press a button, and 20 minutes later, I have the system up and running. We forgot to go back to basics, backing up databases, backing up files that are not OS files, that are not corrupt, because then it will allow us to actually go back and recover some of the things that we need. It might take us a little bit longer because the OS, we need to rebuild it, we need to rebuild the platforms, but it's compared to nothing if we don't have the information, or we need to pay a $5 million ransom for it. And I'm always saying that the basics are always the important thing. The password resets, the backups of files and databases is important. We're not talking most of the issues that's happened recently. There were simple things like somebody forgot to remove a dormant account. Somebody forgot to reset a password. Somebody forgot to close a port. It's basic security. That's the one, and that is the most important, and that's the one we keep failing.
That's because there's no vendors out there shouting about basic security, Ron. That's the problem.
Well, that's because it's basic.
It's part of the problem. Let's say it's part of the problem. Let's jump back to a previous question from Nika, because Dr. Mike Brass, hey Mike, hope you're well. He's jumped in and kind of answered it as well. So Nika asked, what would where is it? Let me find it. What one piece of advice would you give to someone trying to get into cybersecurity? And before I throw that to you, Ron, I'll just cover off what Dr. Mike has just said. He said that one of the key things, in his opinion, which is vital for any experienced or newcomer, is to know how to do risk assessments, which I think is, a very valid point. And then that there are dangers with such simplistic models highlighted by Hubbards and other. It may help others to know how you approach risk assessments in different situations. A good point. So, but back to the original question, what would your one piece of advice be? Now, Nika is one of the most determined, passionate people I've ever met who's trying to break into the industry. So she's got the passion, she's got the determination. You mentioned networking, being a big thing, which is part of what she's doing at the moment. Any other tips and tricks for her, Ron?
Patience. Things don't. So one thing is being patient, because we like instant gratification these days. I go on my app, I get food in about 12 minutes, I get medicine in 10 minutes, and I can see a doctor online in 5. So it's very hard to wait. The things that you do today you're not going to see them coming into fruition in a day, 2, a week, or a month. So patience is important. Also networking, like I said, but also deciding exactly what you want to do in cybersecurity. Like you said, Simon, there's 50 things to do, 50 different roles, 50 different paths. Deciding what you want to do. Do you want to go, again, blue teaming, red teaming? Everybody think about that, but there's other things as well. You might be interested in a GRC, or you might be interested in intelligence, cyber intelligence. You might like to take apart some malware and see how that works. That might interest you. You might be interested in things like incident response, which is a big thing right now. Everybody's looking for incident response people. Decide what you want, and then go and get educated on that if you haven't done so. But when I say educated, take courses online, and I'm not talking about, of course, paid courses. There's a lot of free material out there.
I'm really glad that was your answer, because Nika is part of the InfoSec Live scholarship cohort. We've got 6 people in the community having their pathway funded through different exams, etc. But we've not done the same as every other training provider, because we're not a training provider. And what we've done is a very slowly start compared to other people, where first part was personality assessments to have a look at who you are, what drives you, what interests you. We've then looked at people's past experience, and over the last few weeks and the few weeks coming, we've had some CISOs in, we've got some red team people coming in, we've got SOC analysts coming in, we'll have incident response people coming in. So all of the cohort can then experience and get to know and understand what those different jobs are. Because as you rightly said, blindly jumping in and sitting those exams, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of employers out there are going to need the exams, but in my opinion, what's more relevant is being able to apply that knowledge that you've learned. Because one thing I always say on this show, and I will say it again, is the education that we have as children and adults is an issue, in my opinion, and part of the reason why we don't critically think very well. And we're taught to pass exams, not to understand and apply knowledge.
That's true. I have a project management certification. I'm a PMP. When I took the course, the instructor literally said to me, or to us, to the cohort that was taking the course that day, I'm not going to teach you anything about project management. I'm just going to teach you how to pass the exam. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I actually want to know how to do project management. That's why I'm here. So I read the book and I understood it. So the certification is a byproduct of your learning, not the other way around. You know,
Yes.
The certification is important to get a job, yes, because a lot of employers look at it. But what's even more important is the knowledge you gained behind the certification.
Very much so. And whilst I always make comments about boot camps, I'd just like to clarify that not all boot camps are bad. And again, you've got to put that into context. There's some amazing boot camps out there, expensive, but that's because they're, you know, good quality. And again, my opinion of them is a boot camp and intense training to get you through an exam is great to build on existing knowledge. So using it to fill knowledge gaps, you know, that to me makes sense, rather than thinking you can go from being, you know, a financial planner one week to the world's best penetration tester the next week, because it just doesn't happen, does it?
It doesn't happen. And one of the biggest mistake I see on resumes and also on LinkedIn is that people don't tell that story, the jump between a financial analyst and a pen tester. So all of a sudden you see, I get messages. Hey, Ron, can you help me? I want to be in cybersecurity. And I take a look at their resume and I take a look at their LinkedIn, and it doesn't tell the story. It doesn't have sometimes it doesn't even the word cybersecurity in their resume or in their LinkedIn. And I'm like, well, you have to change the narrative. You have to tell the story. How did you get from being a financial analyst to being a penetration tester? Tell the story. Show us, hiring managers or recruiters, show them how you did the journey, how you took the journey, the projects you did, the courses you took. Even if you didn't get a certification, put it on. I took an online class for pen testing. Put it on there. Post about your progress. It's important to post because then people interact with that. People go and see it. People say, hey, I know this person. I've seen them posting for the past 6 months how their journey between a financial advisor and a pen tester, and I'm looking for a junior pen tester. I'm going to reach out to them.
Yeah, I think let's stick on that for a moment, because again, whilst I agree posting is hugely important, what you post is equally important. And just posting the fact that you've passed an exam or you're top 3% in Try Hack Me or whatever it might be that you've achieved that is amazing is wonderful, but you need to explain to people which means that, you know, I've passed this exam, which means what, you know, and then I think it starts to become very, very powerful, doesn't it?
One of the
Larry's Sorry,
and you're perfectly right. One of the things we keep forgetting is, as tech people, we keep forgetting that most people don't talk tech. If a recruiter sees this, recruiters are not technical people. They need to understand what they're reading. And if you're just talking about, hey, I passed 1%, I'm the top 1% of Try Hack Me, I've done X, Y, and Z, a buffer of overflow hacks. Recruiters don't understand that. You need to put it in lame terms. I'm sorry about that. Put it in non-technical terms. So people can understand the journey you took.
I think again, I mean, and that's where you can demonstrate, you know, previous careers such as being a financial planner or, I don't know, a lawyer. You know, you can drag across those fact-finding skills, those interpersonal skills, the analytical skills, whatever it may be, and then start to demonstrate those. And Larry's said a good point here. Leads him to a question about what your viewpoints are on PMP, ITIL, and any others that would benefit those within the security field, or would those benefit, I suppose, people in the security field is the question.
So I have both. I have a PMP and I have the ITIL version 3. Where they came up with ITIL version 4 with no bridge exam, I said I'm not doing that again. It's a lot of studying. It's a lot of, and I just don't have the time right now to do it. So I'm going to stick with my ITIL version 3. But I do have ITIL version 3 and I do have PMP. Are they benefit? Yeah. Do you have to have them? No. PMP teaches you how to look at projects. And there's a lot of things in cybersecurity, especially if you're more senior, manager, director, VP level, that you're going to need to do a lot of projects. And yes, PMP help. Do you have to take the exam? No. I took it because I wanted to. Again, the learning material is much more important than the exam itself. If there's a job out there that requires PMP for cybersecurity professionals, you might consider taking it. ITIL is important. It explains a lot of the processes. Again, it's great learning material. Do you have to have it for cybersecurity? No. That part for cybersecurity you don't have. ITIL is more of a IT technology service kind of oriented certification, but it's good material to learn because it will help. Again, you don't have to take the certification. You can learn the material though.
Yeah, it's not, like you said, it's not just about having the certificate, it's about understanding and grasping the concept of what you're learning, isn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That brings me on to a question about the challenges in the industry. So people, process, technology, they're the three pillars, allegedly, that I keep getting told about. Why do we fail so bad on the people side, Ron?
We felt so bad on the process side too, not just the people side. But
We'll do that next.
let's start from the people side. We're still working with old concepts. Old concepts was, oh, you need to have a bachelor in something to be qualified to do a job. That's no longer the case. No. I don't have a bachelor's degree, and I think I've done well for myself. School was just not for me. I have I have ADD. I have dysgraphia, which is like my writing and like my spelling is horrible. I started college, and in the first microeconomics class, I'm like, that's it. That's not for me. I'm out. And I just started learning by myself. I learned the things that I liked. I learned how computers work. I learned how networks work. I didn't need microeconomics. I didn't need history of Europe in the 17th century, which is one of the elective courses I had to pick.
That would have come in really handy, Ron, I'm sure.
I'm sure it has been it's a good conversation topic when you sit in a bar somewhere, but I didn't need it at the time. So I started by myself. People go to trade school for IT, cybersecurity, or other things as well. And the concepts are just that you have to have a BA, you have to be a bachelor, and I haven't seen an ad out there for a CISO that requires a master in business. And I'm like, why would a CISO need a master in business? You need to take maybe 2 classes to understand basic business concept, but do you really need an MBA to be a CISO? No. That's a old school way of thinking about it. Also,
I think you're right. I mean, don't get me wrong. Understanding how a business works is super important to be able to communicate to the board and understand, what drives them, what they're doing, and why. But you're right. You don't have to subject yourself to that MBA to understand that. But it would help if our education system actually included that. I mean, here in the UK, we don't get taught anything up until age 18 on anything that's relatively important, like the fact you've got to pay bills and how mortgages work, and all these things. And you could make conspiracy theory comments and say, well, that's because we're educated to become workers rather than leaders. But I'll leave that comment there.
Well, the information is out there. For being a good CISO, you need to know things like OPEX and OPEX, right? Money in, money out. So basic finance and basic accounting 101 and finance 101 would do the trick. You can take those courses almost anywhere sometimes for free. If you want to have courses that are a little bit more robust, you can take them as well. But do you need to have the full-blown MBA now? Again, it's not a necessity. And we're very oriented towards certifications as well. So everywhere you go, they ask for a CISP. Is a CISP a good certification? Yes, I have a CISP. It's a great general certification. It doesn't go deeper into any kind of subject. It's like 10 miles wide and like 5 feet an inch deep. That's the certification. So you learn about a lot of subjects. You don't go really in depth. I call it as a expanded network, expanded security plus the CISP. ISC Square just did a great marketing job that said, hey, everybody needs a CISP if there's cybersecurity. So now you see in all the job descriptions out there that you need a CISP, or you need a CISM, or you need a CISA, like the auditor certification from ISACA. And it's like, okay, you're wanting a junior penetration tester, or you want a junior role in cybersecurity. These people don't need a CISP. They don't need a CISM because they're not managers. But you see those requirements on there for no apparent reason, just because somebody copied and pasted from a different
Well,
job
I think
description and they don't understand.
it's back to what you said earlier, which is the lack of understanding from the recruiters. And it's a shame, really, because they get paid very handsomely for doing that job. You'd think reading a couple of books wouldn't hurt, would it?
Yeah.
Susan's made a good comment here. She's firstly said that, like myself, her background's financial and cybersecurity, and that was a valid point you made. So thank you. But the second one is around the people part, and I'm bringing this up because of the fifth word in this sentence, which is blame. It says human error is often blamed. Do you think that company policies should be aligned with company security policies and perhaps have it automated? So I'll let you answer that question, but then I want to come back to the blame word in a moment, because I think that doesn't help.
No, blaming never helps. Do you think that company policies should be aligned with company security policies? What's different between company policies and company security policies? It's supposed to be the same. So it's supposed to be a part of it.
It's meant to be.
It's meant to be. There's no like security policies and then company policies. It's supposed to be one document, kind of, that have all the policies that don't, interact with each other, don't, collide with each other. That's how I see it, and that's how we have it, and that's how I had it in previous companies. It could have a different section, a compliance section, a cybersecurity section, or cyber section, or information section, and then company HR policies. It's all supposed to be
in one place where you can find it when you need it. Yeah, it's not always the case.
Yeah. Well, it needs to be the case, just in case you need to refer to it.
Oh, here we go. Susan's clarifying. Thanks, Susan. So, for instance, the change in bring your own device, etc., etc. Yeah, that makes sense. Does make sense. And Larry's asking about the exam you were talking about. He said, "Do you mean that, or do you mean?"
Yeah, the CISSP from IC Square. Yeah, this one.
The second one. Yeah. So going back to the blame word, people are everything when it comes to security, in my opinion, and having people's buy-in and understanding of how important it is something that I think companies are failing at quite badly. And doing once a month or once a quarter phishing tests that are automated and come through, I'm not convinced that that's the way to engage your staff. And neither's blaming those or shaming those who fail badly on these tests. Is there a way that you engage your organization's members with security, Ron? And if there is, what is that?
Well, we do phishing tests. We do them quarterly. We don't shame anybody that doesn't do them. We look at the numbers, how many people passed, how many people failed, and a percentage-wise, are we doing a good job? Because we need to have some metrics. If we're not doing a good job in teaching people how phishing works, or we don't just concentrate on phishing emails, because the world around us gives us all sorts of surprises. Text messages, your boss wants you to, is busy and they need you to
transfer me $10,000.
Yeah. Can you transfer $1 million to my account, kind of thing? Stat, I'm in a meeting. So we see a lot of those. So it's all inclusive of the risks and the threats around us. But we don't shame anyone. The goal is, the end result would be always to mitigate the risk. So shaming someone does not mitigate risk. It doesn't do anything.
Increases it.
For us, it increases it. So if somebody fails a test, they just got and they get like literally a 5-minute extra training that they need to do. Nobody comes to them, and it's all automated. So there won't be this kind of, hey, you failed the test again, now we need to talk about it. So it's a page that gives them, hey, we're sorry, this was a phishing test. You clicked on the link, and you're going to have to take this extra 5 minutes training. People don't like it. But that's what we have to do to make sure that they realize what went wrong. And our aim is to always educate and protect. If we don't educate, we can't protect, and if we don't protect, we can't educate. But shaming is not a part of any way, shape, or form of cybersecurity. And shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, no. And I just want to, if anyone's looking for free phishing training, what you want to do is what I've done this week, which is try and sell a laptop on Facebook Marketplace. So I've had a Razer laptop, a couple of years old, that I'm trying to sell in honesty, I'll sell it and buy some Christmas presents with it is the reason, which isn't important. But I'm selling it, and you want to see the responses I've had. So allegedly, I have got someone coming around the house this evening to buy it, and he does sound genuine. But the amount of people who, one was a pretend older lady from Scotland who wanted to buy it for her grandson, who after a bit of digging around clearly didn't exist and lived in a empty warehouse in Birmingham in the UK. And it was, I think we had 15 fake messages through and 3 real ones. So if you want to do some phishing training, put an electronic device up for sale on Facebook, maybe.
Or put anything on Facebook. I think it's
the first time I've done it. I won't do it again. No, you learn your lesson. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left. Let's focus on the challenges for the industry as a whole moving forward. So we mentioned acronyms earlier, and I saw a really funny post, and I won't name and shame the CISO who did it yesterday in case he gets annoyed, but he did a post which was a new vendor that's come to the market with a new product, and I think it had one 3-letter acronym, then a 4-letter acronym on the kind of media marketing page, which was selling this product. I mean, that's got to change, hasn't it? So that's a challenge. But what do you see as the biggest challenge for us moving forward?
There's several biggest challenges. I think the one of the biggest challenge, of course, like you talked to, is there's a shortage of cybersecurity people working, but there's also big gates and gatekeepers to prevent those people from coming in. Job descriptions are not inclusive, which is a big issue. They have, and I've put a survey a couple of days ago. Ask what's the most annoying thing for you guys for when you look for a job, and the number one was the job descriptions that had like a laundry list of things that doesn't make sense. We need more people. We need more diverse people, because it's very easy today to become, and I'm doing this, a hacker. All you need to do is download some kit from some website and press a couple of buttons, and you're a hacker. That's it. You're done. We need more people to understand.
Again, back to not having to really understand what you're doing. It's so, if you're buying it as a service, you don't need
it works both ways, right? But if these people buy it and use it and it succeeds, then we have a problem, right? So we need more people. We need more people that understands how things work, and not just in a technological way, because cybersecurity a lot of the time has nothing to do with technology. I have seen hacks that were amazing. Like they rebuild pages look exactly like the original page. Emails that even I had a problem, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this a phishing email? I need to take an extra look at this. That even I had problems sometimes recognizing that those are phishing emails, because they use social engineering. So we need more people that understand how these other people on the other side of the fence think, more than people that know how to run Python. That's great, Python, but it doesn't help me right now when some genius kind of a hacker makes these wonderful pages. And I'm sorry, sometimes I admire them because they did a really good job. Somebody took the time. Somebody took the research.
It didn't used to be very sophisticated, did it? The emails that we got and these web pages, you could spot them a mile off. But I had a couple through by email last week, which were delivery company scams, which for the first time, like you said, I had to read it 3 or 4 times before working out whether it was a real one or not. So it's scary.
You download Grammarly. You don't need anything. You use Grammarly, and here you go. Almost perfect English. And it's cost nothing. And I was on a webinar yesterday, and there's an uptick of bad actors usually paying for services. So they're paying for domains name now, of course, using a stolen credit card. But they're paying for domain names. They're paying for tools. They're paying for Grammarly. It's no longer, hey, excuse me, sir, I need some Nigerian prince kind of thing. That's no longer the case. These are real email. They look legit. The domain names could be off by 1 letter, or there's a 1 in there instead of an I, so you don't really notice it when you first look at it. And sometimes you don't notice it in the second or third time. So it's great that we have all the technical people know Python, they know C++, they can tear apart a malware, with their tied behind their back, but we also need that understands how we react as people, that recognize that risk. Um, so all sorts of diversity in the industry is needed, which we sadly put out of gates so those people can.
How do we change that, Ron?
We need to, well, it first starts from perception in the business, and then it needs to filter down. Hiring managers, people that are in cybersecurity, they know what they need. They need to lead the recruitment effort and not just let HR do the recruiters. So if they want to say, I don't need anybody that has a bachelor's degree, I decided that I need someone that have other things except of a bachelor's degree. If they have it, it's great. More power to them. But it's not a needed thing in the role I'm looking for. They need to tell it to HR. They need to relay it and say, hey, I'm looking for a specific type of skill set. BA is not one of them. If they have it, again, awesome, more power to them. But it's not a requirement for my job. And I've heard from several CISOs and hiring managers that sometimes HR just says, no, we need to have a BA. So we need to fight for that.
See, this is the bit that intrigues me, because this is now episode 23. Every CISO I've spoken to on this show says the same thing. They want to hire on passion. They want to hire on potential. You know, they're not too worried about everyone having everything they need. These are the people they want. But we're not seeing that. You know, something's going wrong in that chain, because if the leadership who are actually wanting the staff are saying this, because it can't be coincidence that everyone said the same thing. It must be an HR thing then. Let's blame HR today, Ron, shall we?
Well, no, I'm not saying blame HR. I'm saying if they are presenting some sort of blowback on your requirements, then you have to say, and you have to break it down to them why you need it like that. Cybersecurity is not like being an accountant. It's not like being a CFO. It's not like being a salesperson. We need all the diversity we can get in this line of work. And what the old ways or what the HR might, again, put in a box and say, this is what we're looking for, might not be the case that actually what we're looking for. I myself never had that problem. I am blessed to work in companies that always listen to what I need to say and I was the deciding factor of who I need to hire. But I understand that some companies are not like that. And I also understand that bigger companies, the Googles of the world,
makes it harder, doesn't it?
It makes it harder because it's a big machine. They can't, it's comparing the Titanic to a dinghy. So they can't make these switches very, very fast. But it has to happen if we need to be more successful of our cybersecurity field.
You mentioned, you used an analogy there, and Susan, you might like this one. One that I used to use in financial services a lot when trying to talk in layman's terms to clients about investment risk and the dangers of leaving all your money in the default managed fund in your pension fund, for example. And I used to use a maritime analogy for that, where these big funds are like oil tankers that, you know, if there's a change in the market and they need to correct, it takes 3 miles before they can make that correction. Whereas some of the more nimble bespoke funds have that ability to move quicker. So I think, again, it's back to what you said earlier on about storytelling, isn't it? And being able to tell a story to engage and explain a subject. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing. Susan's also said, I'll bring these up quickly, so I want to comment on this. Cloning's on the increase. However, it then becomes fake overnight. Agreed. Do you think the children of our future are learning so fast due to having a mobile phone? I'm going to say, Susan, having 6 children, that children aren't learning fast enough due to having a mobile phone. What do you think, Ron?
So, mobile phone, again, the technology makes us think that we're smart because we can pull up things relatively fast. My daughter, she's almost a year and a half. She knows already how to go on the phone and scroll down and scroll up. She knows how to use the TV remote. She's like, if she's not happy with something we see on TV, she gives us the remote and say, change it. And I'm like, she's learning fast, but do we know how that works? She doesn't know how the remote works. She knows how to scroll down and up. That's great. And we, even me, I go and find on Google an answer, and I'm like, yay, I'm smart because I could find the answer on Google. But do I know what the answer is? So kids are learning, but they're not learning in depth.
Inch deep. Yeah, I completely agree. Going back to what you said about your daughter, go back 11 years my wife and I were at an investment conference, and they brought in a speaker from the US who was an expert on social media and technology and how the world was changing. And at this point, social media and everything wasn't what it is today. And there was a video that he showed of a 2-year-old little girl who was on an iPad or a tablet, and she was flicking the pages across. And they then gave her, I haven't got one to use as a prop, they then gave her a magazine, and she tried to do exactly the same thing with the magazine to turn the page. Yeah, which, looking back at the time, it was like, we were like, wow, that's amazing. How insightful. Now it's just accepted, isn't it? That's the problem.
Yeah.
It is. Larry said here again, before we wrap things up, this is why it's more about our networks, because now those who are in the field can mention us to the hiring party, thus by bypassing the HR department. And that brings us on to another great point. What percentage do you think jobs actually get advertised and put out there, Ron, and how many get filled by people who know people?
I have no clue what the percentage is. I can tell you that I filled a job a couple of weeks ago with somebody from my LinkedIn network, and the ad never went up.
Yeah.
I can tell you that probably I will not need to go looking for employees putting a job out there. I'm just going to probably use my LinkedIn network and get someone like that, because I know these people. Like, I've seen them around. We've talked.
Social proof.
We have some sort of social proof, some sort of social connection. I have about 37,000 connections, and all I need to do is reach out to someone from my network and ask, hey, do you want this job? No? Great, move on. There's a lot of jobs that get filled like that.
There is.
And this is the best way to get a job fast, not needing 6 interviews, 3 projects, and 4 to 5 months of a hiring window.
Well, I mean,
which is what we have today.
I've spent the last 15 months. I never had a social media profile, one that I use regularly until 15 months ago. And I've used social media to build up a network of people. And sharing my story, I handed in my notice with where I was working without another kind of contract to go to a few weeks ago for my own reasons. And I haven't actually applied for any jobs, but I've had 4 companies reach out to me over the last 3 weeks to offer me jobs off the back of it. The fact that I'm unemployable and I want to work for myself is irrelevant, but it just goes to show, if you demonstrate again what you can do in that social setting and you build up a network of people, it is more powerful, I think, than any exams you'd ever have. And Susan, you've jumped in again, so I want to just bring yours up before we wrap things up. It says here about burnout, and it's a really important point, actually, because we hear about it a lot in the industry. Have you ever experienced it, Ron?
All the time.
Yeah.
Because as tech people, as tech cybersecurity people, we tend to work. Even when we don't work, we tend to work, and we tend to like what we do. So because we like what we do, we tend to burn the midnight oil. I can't even tell you how many times I sat down until like 2, 3 a.m. working on a problem, and like not solving it, waking 4 hours later and keep working on the same problem.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
I'm older now a little bit, so I can't really do it, but
Again, it's learning your limitations and putting barriers and blocks, physical blocks in place to make you stop, isn't it? And I think, you're a dad, Ron, you know what it's like. It's so important. We only get that time once with our little ones, and unless you block that time out, it just simply doesn't happen. So look, we're pretty much out of time. Ron, I just want to say, firstly, a massive thank you for coming on and sharing today, and especially for helping answer the audience's questions. And for everyone who's tuned in and jumped in and asked questions, thank you so much. This is what makes these events so valuable, I think. And I want your help now, actually, before we wrap up. So I've got 2 outro videos, and I want to start using one at the end of each stream. So if you could just bear with me and humor me for a couple of minutes, I'm just going to play you a couple of outros, and let me know which one you think is better. That'd be great. I'll be back in 1 sec. So definitely showing my age there with that one, Ron, I think. And the next one, the next one, I'm not going to come back on. So we're going to say goodbye, but I'm going to play you out with the last one. If you could drop in the chat, audience, which ones you prefer, that would be much appreciated. And for those of you who want even more of these live discussions, we're back in 3 hours' time. with Eric Pinkerton from Down Under. So I think it's going to be Thursday morning when we're speaking to him in 3 hours' time. If you're about, please tune in. And again, Ron, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated, and hope to catch up with you soon. Take care.
Appreciate it.